He's not going to have any of you. We will respect your anonymity in there. I appreciate it. Let me start this. I'll be here for an hour. When I was a kid, I guess I was about 6 or 7, I was molested by 2 different people, male and a female. And I'd gone through some problems as a kid. Going to the bathroom in your pants, just things that these days, would have, somebody would be able to notice that. But back then, kind of fell through the cracks. But I have since forgiven that person, both of them, and have moved on with my life as far as that goes. Amen. That's just back that way. And I think that had a lot to do with how my life might have progressed from there. I'm not sure. But it really didn't start affecting me until I was about 14. So I was in the 8th grade. And it's like when it hit me, I automatically felt filthy and dirty. And I felt like everybody around me could see me. They could see it in me. So I would avoid people. But I found a few good friends. And those few good friends knew some other few good friends who had access to liquor. So at a very early age, I found socializing with liquor was easy for me. Because I didn't have to, I felt like it gave me power. I felt like it gave me strength. So I started drinking pretty heavy at an early age. Really at about 16, the sneaking out, the skipping school. And as soon as I had a license, I didn't care about school. I was off. I was in the woods, or I was at somebody's house drinking and smoking pot and all that. I really didn't get into cocaine and stuff till later. That's coming. But it made me more social. I should have wrote this down, but I did not. The alcohol took over my life, and I didn't realize it. It took over my life completely. It made all the bad go away, and I stopped caring about other people. I stopped caring about the people that cared about me, and automatically, anytime somebody would say anything to me about drinking or going out and sneaking out, I would always put it back on them. It was not my fault. Me and my parents had several arguments about me being molested, being there. It's your fault. You should have seen it. Now I'm doing this, and now you want to have problems. Well, I had a problem with that. I was not an easy person to get along with. Sometimes I'm still not. I'm just better.
Amen.
But, so I stopped really caring what my parents thought. I started to drift away from all my good friends. I was a police explorer, and I still stayed in another 2 or 3 years. But I used my access to the people that I knew to get away with things. I had no respect for the law. I thought that I could just curve around it, and I did for a while. I got away with it. And in my 20s, been married 3 times. I'm not going to go through all 3, for sure. But me and my second wife had a son who's in the Navy now. Very proud of him. But my drinking problem I had not addressed it. I didn't care to address it. I thought a 12-pack of beer after work every day was okay. That's just what I did. The beer came before the bills every time. So I ended up getting a DUI in St. Augustine. You know how that goes. Some of us, one cop comes up and tells you that he's going to be right back with your ticket, and then 2 more show up.
Every time.
So I'm scraping to find the cap to the liquor bottle and all this other stuff. But anyways, he gave me a field sobriety test. I argued with him a little bit because we were on St. George Street, and it was kind of like this, I'm like, well, how do you expect me to do it on this road, But anyway, so I went to jail for that. Didn't quite ruin anything for me, job-wise. I still went to go work. I was a prison guard for a year. I went to go work for the sheriff's department. I was there 2.5 years in Putnam County. So the DUI really didn't ruin any of my job plans. But back to the marriage and the alcohol. Well, it was a constant fight with me and her over my drinking. And sad to say, the alcohol won that marriage. And of course, looking back on it now, I see that a lot of things were my fault. And I have, believe it or not, addressed that with my second wife. And although we don't speak now that he's 20 and in the Navy, we came to an agreement just not to disagree about anything anymore. That's the best it's going to get, which is okay. But I would, that progressed to some liquor, lots and lots more liquor. Especially after the second marriage. The third marriage was nothing but liquor and pills and cocaine. And I hadn't done meth yet, and I hadn't done crack yet. But so I started partying real hard. I got custody of my son, which I had custody from was 2 to 8 or 9, 8 years old, I think. But anyway, I partied when he wasn't there, and then sometimes I would even party when he went to bed. I'd invite people over to the house, and I'd be like, "Shh, be quiet. You can't. If he walks out here, you better get that cocaine off the counter. You better. I don't want him to see it." Well, I thought that was being a decent parent, keeping him away from the drugs I had in the house. Guess what? It's not, folks. It's not being a decent parent. I struggled with time with him. Spending time with him sober was kind of non-existent. I would have to have a cup of vodka and orange juice everywhere I went. I mean, for years, everywhere I couldn't go to Walmart without having a drink, because it helps me to get up and feel normal, energetic, social. Because I had a tendency to withdraw when I wasn't using anything. I would just go sit in a dark room and I don't want to, excuse me, hold on, whatever. But it was, did you get that too?
Yes.
Yes, you did.
Highlight it.
You're going to edit that, right? Anyway, so I started using cocaine pretty hard, even on weekdays. I had a really good job. When I left the sheriff's office, I went to go work for the Florida Park Service. I was a park ranger for 6 years, and I had just so many opportunities. I mean, that was such a great job. It's probably one of my biggest regrets is losing that job. But I started stealing from the money box that's right there at the front. I actually installed that. So that's what I figured, I've got the key, so I'm just going to borrow $40 from it, but I'll put it back. Well, guess what, folks? I still ain't put it back. I might need to go do that. But, so I started stealing from my habit, because my paycheck just wasn't enough to cover food and bills and coke and morphine and liquor. Just couldn't afford it. So, of course, I started stealing for it. And I started taking the company gas card that I had for my work truck and filling up my car with it all the time. All the time. I wasn't even thinking I'm going to get caught, because I'm a good employee. I mean, I showed up, I stayed late, I did everything they wanted me to do. Well, I got wrote up. When I got wrote up the first time, boss sat me down and asked me, "What's wrong with you? What's going on with you?" I'm like, "I don't know. What's going on with you? It ain't me." He's like, well, I heard you got drunk at a party here the other night, which I did. There was one night they had come in they rented the building out to, I think GP it was. And I knew some folks there. So I figured one beer's not going to hurt. So before the end of it, in uniform and everything, I'm slosh drunk, dancing on the dance floor, and somebody snitched me out, which still sucks. But
like they did something wrong. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. Why did y'all snitch me out? But I got wrote up for the first time, and then that led to me not caring even more. Next 2 times, I had a big hearing in Blue Springs, and they actually ended up terminating me with all the things that I'd done. I was really lucky not to go to jail, to be honest with you, with all that I'd stolen. So I took that little whooping and head out. Then from there, I got into crack real bad. I talked to my dealer. My dealer didn't even want to do it. And I'm dead set on anything that I want to do, I'm going to do it. So I convinced, I even threw extra money. I want to try that. And I said, no, you don't. I'm like, yes, I do. Just give it to me. Here's the money. Well, ever since he did that, he says, you'll be back today. And I was over and over and over and over again. That's when my son went to go live back with his mom. Me and this wild woman got married. And we bar hopped. We had parties at the house until I was evicted because I'm not paying my bills. And when they evicted me, the cops were there and they said, you have drugs all in this house. And I'm like, you guys are in the house, not me. Maybe they're your drugs. Well, cops don't like that. Okay, like at all. But there was nothing they could do. I wasn't in the house. They didn't find me in the house. But not just, I probably shouldn't have gotten away with that. The less we get away with in a short amount of time, the better chance we have. But just consider us all lucky to be alive right now. I'll tell you right now. Amen. Okay, getting off track there. Well, after I started doing crack, man, I hated it because I loved it so much. I liked it, and it just kept me coming back for more. I've been in some real trashy places. Roaches everywhere. I smoked crack with a guy who peed he was in a wheelchair and peed in a bucket. It was horrible. The stench was terrible. But the crack was worth it to me. Because that's where I could go and be safe and smoke it. So I did. And of course the dealers used this house. So, I was always, in supply. But it ruined my life. And eventually I ended up trying to rob some guy. I was at the Walmart Plaza, and my idea was to rob a dealer. So I sat in the parking lot and waited till I saw a vehicle that I recognized. Well, I chased down this vehicle. This was on the news, by the way. Y'all could probably even go back and watch it. So I chased this vehicle down, and when I got to their driveway, I realized it's the wrong guy. This is not who I'm looking for. And 2 more people walk out of the house. Well, I'm like, okay. So what I did was I just told them, look, man, I'm a deputy sheriff. Everything's fine. I'm just going to leave. Well, they blocked me in. So I ended up able to escape there, but a week later, the cops came guns drawn at my door and arrested me for impersonating an officer. I said, for what? I said, how is that, But anyway, I pled to that charge because it was better than the rest of them. And, the 9 months probation adjudication withheld, I'll take that. Well, just a couple months later, I committed a burglary and a grand theft. Guess what, folks? You don't get out of that. There ain't no slap on the wrist for that. So they gave me 18 months in prison, 5 years probation. So I did, Did my time, got out, did 2.5 years on probation, playing good. I was still using pills. I was still doing like Dilaudid and smoking a lot of weed, but I was able to get through my drug tests. They actually didn't test me as often as I figured they would. So sometimes I just got real lucky, to be honest with you. But I wasn't learning anything. I'd still yet to have learned a lesson. And I'd already been to prison. I'm on probation. I've hurt all these people, destroyed lives. My parents, I stole from my parents. So much that I stole from my parents. I lied to them. And a couple times, Daddy almost threw me in jail, but I talked him into a rehab. So I would go to rehabs whenever I got in trouble, stay for 30 days, and leave. That was just the way I'd get out of jail. You know, I used rehab as a tool. I never ever took it seriously. There might have been 5 minutes or so out of a day that I actually read the Bible and thought about it, but I hadn't learned enough yet, I guess, or heard enough people. So I got into meth real hard when probation was over. Actually, a little bit before probation was over, but I was good to go, so I went ahead and started partying real hard again. Well, I didn't like meth, okay, but I kept doing it. It wasn't anything like anything before, but I felt it made me feel awake and alive and alert. But it made me over alert because I suffer from major depressive disorder with psychotic features, and now I'm doing meth. So I freaked out quite a bit. I called the cops on myself, thinking people were chasing me, hiding behind trees. I've been yelling at my neighbors in their windows, beating on their windows, telling them to stop spying on me. Yeah. I could go on all night about that. Just right now, I've got about 6 different stories about that, but I haven't a lot of time for that. What got me back in recovery almost 2 years ago now was I'd done just a big fat crystal, and I was taking Adderall, which I'd talked my doctor into, and I snorted that entire piece and then snorted about half my bottle of Adderall, went to my parents' house, accused them of spying for the cops and trying to set me up. Where this came from, I don't know, but that's what happened. So they got scared. Dad was on his way to get the gun, so I'm out. I left, and I worked for Beck at the time. And I was an outside sales rep. Folks, I was making good money. Lived in Keystone on the lake. But meth was more important to me. Well, I took off with my work gas card, filled my car up, and I thought I was headed to Lake City. But I actually went to Lakeland. Just to let you know, my direction was not where it should have been. Well, I took off to Lakeland. I hid my car from myself, and thank God I had my keys. But I parked it under some random tree in some random building, and I've never been to Lakeland. I have no idea where anything's at. So I parked the car behind the tree. I'm like, I got them now. Ain't no way they're going to get me. So I start walking. And folks, it felt like I walked for 3 days. Just in the woods and homeless camps, hiding from helicopters under bushes. I mean, looking back on it, when I got to the hospital, I had cuts all over me. I was exhausted. I couldn't walk right for about 2 weeks because my legs hurt so bad. But anyway, so I thought they were closing in on me. So I took my key fob and I held it to this guy. And I said, give me your truck keys right now. I said, I'm going to kill you, like that. And he's just like, And I remember him having like a veteran's hat on. He's just like, if you want my keys, come get them. So I ain't have time for that fool. You know what I mean? So I'm out. No, I ain't in the mood for that right now. So I tried to go into a house. I was going to hide in some random house. Thank God the doors were locked. A lot of things could have gone a different way that day. But God was steering me through every bit of it for this moment. So I walked into a Walgreens. I decided that they're not taking me alive. They're not going to, they can't have me. So I walked into a Walgreens and grabbed some scissors off the shelf, and I started stabbing myself in the neck. I can't feel this side of my face anymore because I've cut all the nerves on the inside of it. And when I stabbed that, I stabbed in there into both of my wrists. I started with this wrist here, and I was just bleeding all over the store. There were people everywhere just freaking out, I remember. But I went in the back. I laid a bunch of water bottles on top of me so the cops couldn't get me. Well, there were no cops chasing me, folks, until I stabbed myself in the neck with a pair of scissors. So the cops showed up. I told them I had a gun because I wasn't finished. I stabbed myself in the neck until I passed out. After that, I remember a blanket and some bits and pieces of things. They ended up taking me to the hospital. And I remember glancing in the parking lot. I don't think I've ever seen that many cops in one place. Remember talking to the deputy in the emergency room. Him asking me if I really had a gun, and I said, no, I was just trying to get y'all to kill me. And I was. I wanted them to shoot me dead. Because I'm tired of living like this. I'm tired of having to go through this every day. Tired of it. There's no way out for me. This is it. Death. That's it. Well, God saw fit to save me that night. I was told at the hospital that if I didn't get there when I got there, I'd have bled to death. They had to give me a transfusion. I'd lost a ton of blood when I got out of the hospital. Even when I got there, of course, as much meth as I'd done, and amphetamines as I'd done, it took a good week to get my mind wrapped around what had happened. Of course, the very first doctor that talked to me, I thought he worked for the FBI. And I wouldn't talk to him. I wouldn't talk to him. I wouldn't talk to the nurse. I thought they were trying to drug me, trying to get me to give information on what, I don't know. I've never been in the CIA. I'm not a spy. I have no idea what they wanted. But anyway, folks, it almost killed me. It might have for a few minutes. I don't know.